Hello, I'm Mike Siemsen, Mike Siemsen School of Woodworking, located in beautiful Chisago City, Minnesota. And I'm here to show you how to flatten boards using traditional hand planes. The three planes that we're going to use today are the Fore plane, that's F-O-R-E, Fore plane. The tri-plane, that's this longer plane, that's T-R-Y, tri-plane, it puts the boards in truth. And the smooth plane, which is this smaller one here. This happens to be a number 3 Stanley. There's also a number 4 Stanley. Don't get the number 4 confused with the word for here, because they are different and they're spelled different. The Fore plane, which is the first plane that we typically use, has a fairly curved iron or cambered iron. It sticks up higher, further out of the plane in the middle than it does on the edge. And this is so when you're planing across the grain, it severs the fibers rather than lifting them and causing tear out. We want to go a little bit about how planes work so that you understand as we go through the process what's going on. They're called planes for a reason. They make things coplanar. So if I take this long plane here, the tri-plane, and I'm actually going to use it as a jointer here and joint the edge of this board so you can see how they work. And I'll take a shaving off of this board and you'll see it doesn't cut here at one spot. So it's hollow here and high here. And what I want to do is get it to plane all the way across. So I get a shaving the full length of the board. And that's it right there. Now I want to make this straight. In order to make it straight, I'm going to stay away from these ends and I'm going to plane the wood out of the middle. So the plane will ride on these two high spots and it'll lower the middle out by the thickness of a shaving over the length of this plane, because that's how far the iron is sticking out. So I'm going to plane inside these marks that I made until the plane quits cutting. Right now we've got a slight hump in this board and we're planing that out. And I'll just keep planing it here until it quits giving me a shaving. Now you can see it stopped cutting. I'm not getting a shaving anywhere, maybe right there at the end. So I know now that this board is slightly hollow by the length of this plane and by the thickness of one of these shavings, that's how much it is hollow. They're fairly thin. You probably can't see that on camera, but they're fairly thin. Then I'm going to plane straight through and take the end off, and I want to get a full width shaving. And that's what I got here. I got a plain shaving here that's looks just like the top edge of the board. It's kind of twisted, but there's no holes or hollows or anything in it. So I know this is straight. And it's also flat all the way. I could put winding stick on it, but I was careful to hold the plane straight and not twist it and follow the board, but make it straight. And so now I've jointed the edge of this board. If I were to put a square on here and check it to see if it was square, which it's fairly square, but if it was out of square, I could shift the plane over so the edge of the plane here was flush with the edge of the board, and you can see the iron doesn't cut out that far. So if I wanted to lower this edge, I would just follow that along there like that, and I can lower this edge by the thickness of one shaving. If it was the other edge, I shift it over this way, I lower that edge the thickness of one shaving. So I can lower either edge until I get it back to square. For now, the main thing we need to know is that if we plane out this center and leave the ends alone, it gives us a fairly straight line. Now we're going to face plane this board, which is what our little tutorial here is really about, is planing off the face of this board so it's flat. And I tried to find a board that had some cup and twist in it that was wide enough. This one's actually a pretty nice piece of lumber, and it's fairly flat, but it does have a little crown in it. And when you're working with a piece of wood with a crown in it, you can either put the crown down, which would be in the center, it would be the two edges up, or you can put it with the two edges down and the hump high. I prefer to do it with the hump high because the edges of the board then support the board, and if it has a twist in it at all, and this one has a slight twist, I don't know if you can see that, but there is a little rocking this way and not so much this way. So I can just take a wedge and put under there and get rid of that rocking, so now it's laying flat. And if I were to put a winding stick on here, that's another thing we're going to use, is these are winding sticks. They're just two sticks that are straight, and they're painted black on one side and white on the other. And I can put that on here, and I can see that there is a hump in this. You can see how if I push down here, it's raised up that much. So there is a hump, and it originates right about here. And I want to check this for wind to make sure this board doesn't have any twist in it. That's what we're trying to get rid of, is twist. Any kind of warp, any cup, crown, twist we want to get rid of. So to start with, I need a straight line across this end, because this winding stick doesn't tell me anything right now because it's sitting on top of a curve, so it just rocks back and forth. I could put winding sticks on here, but they wouldn't tell me anything. What I need is to have a straight line across the end. To get a straight line across the end, I'm going to stay away from these corners here. I'll mark them dark so you can see that. And I want to plane this hump out. I'm going to use my Fore plane because it takes the biggest shaving off. And this is rough work you're trying to get done. You don't want to spend all day removing little fine shavings. You want to get rid of these big thick ones. Okay, so now if I put my winding stick on here, you'll see that by pushing down here, it doesn't rock anymore. I've created a straight line, and I've not taken any wood off of these two corners. You don't want to take any extra wood off. If I lower this corner, I have to lower that whole board by that much material, and I really don't want to do that. Okay, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to do the same thing to this end. I'm going to leave that material on the corner, and I'm going to make a straight line across there. And you may find if your board has a big hump in it that you have to plane back in this far even in order to lower all this wood down so that you can get a clean shot across there. You don't want to just angle the plane and try and get that in. You want to keep it fairly flat. My board being fairly flat, I don't have too much trouble with that. You can see now I've got this end straight. And now I want to check the board for wind. And the way we do that is we set up these winding sticks like this. I'm going to put the white up there, and I'm going to put the black there so I have a lot of contrast. And I'm going to put my triplane behind it here because it also then gives me some contrast. And I'm going to look across the end here and see how much twist is in this board. By looking across these sticks, I can see that this black in contrast to this white stick, and I can see if this is off. If one corner is higher than another, I can look at these and I can see how much that is. And what I'm looking to see is how much I need to take off. And this here is the thickness of the shaving that I'm taking, that I just made on my bench. So when I look across this, if I see that this end is low, I can put one of these shavings under there and I can look and see if it's lining up better. And if I can put an equal amount of shavings, one shaving, two shavings, three shavings, whatever it takes to get these sticks to be in line, that will tell me how much I have to take off of that corner, off the high spots, in order to get the thing in wind. Okay, we've moved our cameras here so you can see across the winding sticks. You can see the black and then the white here on this one. If I raise that up, you can see it in the picture. And then you'll see that it levels out pretty evenly. It appears to me like this side here is a little low. Here's what it is with one shaving in there. If I just put one shaving in there, that raises that corner up. And from what I saw, it was probably 2 shavings off. So here's another shaving. And when you look across there now, that should look like you're seeing just the same white line across the top here, all the way across. And that tells you that how much you need to remove to put this board in wind. So now we're going to plane this off and make it flat. So that's what we'll do next. But we know how much to lower those corners. We'll check it for wind again, which I won't show on camera, but we'll just do it. And then we'll flatten the board off. So that gives you an idea of what looking at wind looks like. I'm just getting this ready here so that I have something to plane against. I'm planing against a stop here, which is just a piece of plywood with a couple of slots in it. I can raise and lower it at the end of the bench so it goes below, or I can raise it up and use it as a planing stop. It's a pretty simple operation. Okay, we got everything back here. We've set back up here. We know that our board is slightly out of wind and that we put shavings on this corner. So this is a low corner. The thing to keep in mind when you do this is there's not one low corner or one high corner. There are always 2. And since these 2 would be our low corners, these are our high corners here where I'm going to make this circle. Okay. And these are our low corners. Here, I'll make a triangle there, like that. Okay? We don't want to lower these low corners. We want to lower the high corners. If you take some off of here, you're going to have to make the entire board that much thinner. So you only want to remove as much wood as you have to get the board flat. Okay, we know it was 2 shavings, so if I take a shaving off of this corner and don't take one off of there, and if I take a shaving off of this corner and don't take one off of here, we should be pretty well in wind. So I'm going to take my plane and I'm going to plane off this corner, and I'm not going to take any off of there. And I'm going to turn the board around because it's easier to plane onto the board. I won't get any what's called spelching, which is blowout on this back side. And I'm going to take it off of here. Like that. So now we should be pretty much in wind with our ends. So we know that 2 points in geometry make a straight line, and we know a plane wants to make things straight. So here's our 2 points. We've created a straight line there and a straight line here. And using our winding sticks, we know that those points these lines are parallel to each other. And everything lying in between those 2 parallel lines creates a plane. So if we can maintain that, then we can make this board flat. Since we know that 2 points make a straight line, we can plane through here. And if we don't take these ends off, we can lower this edge. And make sure that you don't just plane the edge. You're going to have to work over here. Take some off there so you can take more off here. So you can take some off the edge. When you plane the edge, you want to make sure you're using the center of the plane at the edge of the board so you're getting a full cut, because this does make a scallopy cut. So we've got ourselves pretty straight here now. We've created a straight line here. Now we're going to turn the board around and we'll do it again. We'll create a straight line here. And this plane, because it's cambered, does make a bit of a hollow here. We're going to end up with it slightly low across here, but not too much. Okay, now 2 points make a straight line, so we've created a straight line. So right now we've outlined the perimeter of a plane, which is this area in here that we want to flatten. If we don't take anything off these lines, and knowing that the plane won't cut lower than that, we can plane across the middle of this board any direction, any way we want, until it quits cutting, and we should be flat. So we're just going to go across the board, and typically I plane up to about there. I don't want to plane off the end because I don't want to blow out this edge. So I just plane up to it. It's very easy when you're doing this to plane uphill and then kind of arc the plane. You want to actually start here and plane straight lines and lower those straight lines as you go. So you've got a hump in this board like this, and you want to plane it off like that, and then like that, and then like that. You don't want to follow this hump. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm starting here and I'm just planing up, and then I can go further as I go. Another thing to be aware of is that your plane has a curve in the iron, so when you plane, if you can see there's little scallops here, you need to half lap your strokes. So because otherwise you're just going to be riding on these high spots and you won't be able to remove the material. So you have to plane up here and then move the plane over. Here's the edge of that stroke, and lower that one. Otherwise you're only lowering, you won't flatten the board out. You'll be riding on these ridges. So you have to make sure that you're half lapping your strokes as you go. And this is the case even with a smooth plane or a triplane. It doesn't matter. And we're going square across the board. It's a lot easier to plane that way. And with this Fore plane, you can see I've got some pretty big shavings. I'm removing a lot of wood quickly. One of the things I forgot to mention earlier, and I'm going to use this as an excuse to take a breather, is the Fore plane is often referred to as a scrub plane. This is a scrub plane. And you'll see it's that much shorter and that much narrower. The shorter the plane is, the more it'll follow the board. So the longer the plane is, the flatter you can make it. So it's harder to make a board flat with a scrub plane like this, it's number 40, than it is with a longer plane like this. You could set up a number 5, something that actually a longer plane even on a Fore plane wouldn't hurt. I like these transitionals. They're inexpensive. You don't care if it has a wide mouth. You want the body to be fairly flat, but it's not nearly as fussy as it would be setting up like a smooth plane. You can see the plane is not cutting in places because I've lowered it enough, but it's still got some high spots. I'm trying to be sure that I'm working all the way down to this edge down here, because I don't want to be not lowering that, because I'm going to be guiding off of it coming back from the other side. You can see that I'm getting all the way back to here. And you can see the plane doesn't want to cut anymore because I've kind of flattened that out. Now I'll turn it around. Now I've removed most of the wood that I need to take off now. I'm just bringing this side up. I'm going to mark this for your sake so you can see what's going on here. Most of this you can see without marking it with the crayon, but it does help in the beginning. You can see how really easy to rock the plane here, so I'm trying to just knock this hump off first. See, now I'm getting hardly any shavings. They're clean across the board. If you want, you can go a bit of a diagonal. Now I can check my board because my bench top should be fairly flat. So I can check my board here and see that it's laying flat on the bench. It's not rocking, it's not giving me any trouble. So I have flattened it. This is important that your bench be flat. So now I'm done with the triplane. And I'm going to go on to the, or done with the foreplane, I'm sorry. I'm going to go on to the triplane. Now I'm using a longer plane. The longer plane is going to make it flatter. And again, I'm going to half lap my strokes or thereabout. I try to always plane off the edge. So here again, I'm going to color this up so you can see what's going on. And there's a little bit of tear up there, so I'm going to try planing from this end first. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to plane through. you'll notice that I didn't get much of a shaving here. I got a little on each end. And so the inclination would be to set your plane deeper. But if you do that, when you get to where you've knocked off all these humps, you won't even be able to push the plane anymore because it's digging too deep. So just set it so it takes a decent small shaving and plane all the way through. And then you want to half lap your strokes so that you're always lowering the entire board. And I have taken care, I've set this plane up so it takes an equal shaving all the way across. Here the plane is taking a little bit more each time. And it tends to be high on the perimeter and a little hollow in the middle. Because that shorter plane will make a bigger hollow than this long one. Make sure you're taking the same amount off of both edges of the board and the middle. It's very easy to plane more off of this edge that's closer to you. Make sure too I'm using half the plane here, see, on the edge. I'm not planing off the edge. If you follow the edge of the plane, remember there's no iron right at the edge. Rub a little paraffin on your planes. This is just paraffin canning wax. Makes them a little easier to push. You can see that board is very flat. It's slightly, you hear it tapping there. So this corner is slightly low. So I could just lower these other corners. If you were really fussy, I don't think it's that much. should probably take care of it. And that would be then, we'd be done with the triplane, because we really flattened it now. This board is very flat. You put a stick on it like this, it's flat, it doesn't have any rocks in it. We flip it over on our bench, it's flat and nice. And if this were like the inside of a case, that would be plenty good. You could even quit with the scrub plane if you're the Fore plane if you wanted to. But otherwise, you switch to the smoother. The smoother takes a very fine shaving. As you go here, you're going progressively finer and finer with the thickness of the shaving. So this shaving here is much thinner than this one. And you're trying to get these full width shavings as close as you can out of the mouth of the plane and the same thickness all the way across. So now, if I needed to smooth this, I would take this little smoother and plane these off. And again, go and overlap your strokes. And make sure you do the entire surface. I always liken it to if someone's lost at sea and the airplane is flying around searching for them, you don't want them to miss a spot, because that might be where your lost soul is. So we would plane off the entire surface here. And everything's pretty smooth except for this one corner here. Is it got a little tear out. I'm going to plane it from this other way, then the grain reverses right in here. So I can clean that up. And I've got a nice smooth board. Now to do the other side, I'm going to flip it over, and now we have an opposite situation. Before we had a crown up like this sitting on our bench, and now we've got this sitting on our bench. So we're going to lower these corners off until we get to the middle. So the middle here is the low spot. Now we're working with a low spot there, and we want to lower these corners down. This is going to be pretty straight. This board is fairly straight. So I would do the same techniques that I used on the other side, lower these corners and get this straight across. So I want to make sure that I'm lowering this outside here. And I don't want to blow out the end, so I'm going to come from this side. Have two straight surfaces again. Check for wind. And here again, remember, this is going to be hollow in the middle, so you have to get through to the bottom here. I'd check for wind and then plane straight through, remove the edge out into the middle, and it should be a flattened board. So I hope that made sense to you. It's not too difficult of a process in the beginning. It's a little bit confusing, but if you keep it simple, outline the perimeter like we did and plane out the center, you'll find that the board comes up flat pretty successfully. If you want, you can take a gauge and gauge around the outside of the board so it's the same thickness. I don't typically do that. Usually the lumber is close enough, and in handwork you don't have to worry about it being exactly the same thickness as if you had run it through a power planer. If you have a power planer, this is a good way to use just the Fore plane. You can joint off the face of a 12-inch board and then run it through your power planer, and then you have a flatter board without using a joiner, because a 12-inch joiner can be kind of expensive. But you can use a hand plane, get the board flat enough to run through the planer, flip it, run it through the other way, and then you've got a nice flat board. So it's useful with power tools as well as just with hand tools. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. This has been Mike Siemsen, Mike Siemsen School of Woodworking. If you're interested in more, I do have another video on work holding here on YouTube, and I also have a video at Lost Art Press called The Naked Woodworker, which is getting started in woodworking with nothing. So that might be useful to you too if you're just getting started. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.